All right, everyone, again, welcome. We are going to give it a couple more minutes. We are up to 51 participants that have logged in so far. We are live on Facebook for this conversation. We also are recording this so that we can have a record of the thoughts and ideas and concerns that people have from across the Capital District. People from Albany, Schenectady, and Troy were all invited to participate and be here today. We've already even received emails. People said, hey, here's the thought that I had. As I mentioned earlier, if you have a question or a comment, you also can put it in the chat box. We will make sure that we keep that list of any information that comes through, and we will have this recording so that we'll be able to refer back to it, as well as anything that was sent to us by email prior to the call. So we're going to give it a couple more minutes, let folks log in, and then we're going to jump in and get started.
Hey everyone, Jamaica.
Hi.
How y'all doing?
So welcome everyone. We're about to get started. I'm really glad to see more people are joining as we're about to begin. My name is Jamaica Miles. I'm one of the founding members of the All of Us Community Action Group. I know that some of you have been at a number of the actions we've had or participated in or were supporting in Albany, Schenectady, and Troy. It is, and the people just keep pinging, more and more of you are joining. My co-host for today is going to be Sean Young. Sean, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Sean Young, another founding member of All of Us. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this important discussion today on what we're going to be doing moving forward in the Capital District.
I'm going to actually leave myself off mute and give you the wonderful warning of, yes, I have children, and yes, they talk, and yes, they make noise. And that's kind of the beauty of All of Us, is that there is no shame in us living our lives and having full participation and be able to have that space where we're able to be present regardless of those situations. So I'm actually going to take down the flyer now so that we can just see as many faces as possible on the screen. Whoo! Look at that, y'all. Hey, everybody. Y'all looking good. So the purpose of today is twofold. One, we want to be able to share some information about who all of us is, things that we already have planned, as well as hear from you about what are the challenges you're facing, what are the issues that you think are important, what are the ideas that you have, and we're going to try to do that in two ways. After we give an introduction, you'll have an opportunity, if you are on a computer, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little icon that says reactions. You'd be able to click that reaction, and then you can give a thumbs up, or you can click the reaction and give applause. Either way, that gets our attention, right? So if you want to try to raise your hand to say, I've got a thought, or there's also the chat function. So again, if you're on a computer, it looks a little different if you're on a cell phone. There's the little toolbar, it says chat. Once you click on chat, it will open another box. And you can either send a message to everyone, right? If you want to share your thoughts or your questions and have everyone see them, you can put them in the chat and share them with everyone. Or if you want to send them directly to either Sean or myself, you can do that as well. We will make sure that we keep the chat. We're able to download that as a file. So if there's any questions or comments or concerns that are raised in there, we will have that record and be able to share it in its entirety. After this call, we will have a live and living and breathing document of the thoughts, concerns, and ideas of this larger Capital District community. Again, we have people from Albany, Schenectady, and Troy that are on this call today. And we have people from Albany, Schenectady, and Troy that are a part of this moment that we're building towards a movement. And with that, I actually am going to ask Sean to kick us off and talk about who all of us is, how we got started, and just what our goals and dreams are. Sean?
All right, thank you. So all of us is like its title. It's about all of us. It's about bringing all voices to the table in conversation to figure out what steps need to be taken moving forward in our communities, how best to plan that out, and coming together to trying to figure out just basically how we should move. What we've seen before this is like there's a silo of voices that usually are in control of what narratives are, what policies are, and how we move forward. We decided that we needed an opportunity to bring the entire community in together to have a conversation. If we're talking simply about the Capital District, that means like represented on this call is all members from around the region. That's Albany, Schenectady, and Troy primarily, but that does not exclude places like Manans, Waterville, and other places, etc. We have different power structures in our communities. There's different mayors, there's different leaders, there's different councilmen, police departments, and all that stuff is a little bit different. But we connect on so many other levels, on the state level and just on a human level, right? We had an event, I'm sure that some of you have heard about it, three-part series of events actually around the death of Ahmaud Arbery recently. That happened on the 22nd. Before we can get to the next event in Albany, well, first let me give you a little background about the event. So the event was going to be a three-part series event, one in Schenectady, one in Troy, and one in Albany. Schenectady happened on the 22nd. We had several folks come out, we ran, we honored the death of Ahmaud, but we wanted to connect that kind of injustice to the justice we see right here in the Capital District. And before we even got to the second event, we had the death of George Floyd. And that kind of accelerated things to a greater level, but the idea stayed the same. We had a place to bring all voices to the table in outrage and sorrow about what happened and that tragedy, and then to figure out how we're going to move together to demand change. Another event is happening on Sunday, in Troy, and that will be, I think, a culmination of that event. But moving forward, we need to be thinking about what next steps are. So I want to be clear, and I'm not going to take a lot of time, but in this moment that we're all in, that we're all, very aware of, we need to be thinking about what next steps need to be taken, and we need to have all our voices at the table. It's super important that this conversation is had. It's super important that we all stayed engaged, and it's super important that I think folks understand that if we really want change, you're going to have to get a little uncomfortable. You're going to have to get on these Zoom meetings and talking with people and doing things a little bit differently than the status quo, because if we continue to do what we've always done, we're going to continue to get the same thing. So this is an opportunity for us to say, okay, I want something different. Then the question is, what are you willing to do to get that difference? And being engaged, having conversations are super important. So that's kind of what the idea of all of us is, wrapped around this moment that we're in. Literally, it's about the title. It is all of us, literally. So that's my kind of understanding of all of us. So I hope you understand.
Yeah, no, that is a wonderful transition of what the actions and our moment and how we are as a group together. I do want to read our short statement that we wrote together. It is important for you to know that we are a collective. There are 10 of us in our leadership team for the All of Us Community Action Group. And we do everything as a collective. We do not make decisions independently. We bring it to the table for a consensus. And so in our statement, we said, the All of Us Community Action Group is a Black-led group that unites people across intentional divisions such as race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, language, country of origin, zip code, and economic status. We work to unite and create change for the benefit of the people based on the voices and experiences of the people, especially those amongst us most hurt by the current systems and structures of racism, sexism, exploitation, and oppression. All of Us is in partnership and coalition with other community groups and organizations. More people are united. We are not accepting the past or the current status quo. More people are coming together, and we will continue to come together to demand change. And with that premise, we need more voices at the table. We need to hear from all of you while we are a part of all of us. And that really is it. We want to make sure that the majority of this time allows for all of you to say whatever it is that's on your minds and your hearts. What is it that you're seeing? What is it that you're feeling? I am going to let you know some ground rules that we live by. One of them is progressive stack. And this is the favorite speech that I give. Some have heard me say it before. Outside in the world, there is a hierarchy that exists. It is one that we are all subject to. And in that hierarchy, at the top are cisgendered, wealthy white men who have access and opportunity every single day to be heard, to be believed, to make decisions that impact all of our lives. And at the bottom of that stack are women of color, especially transgendered Black women, especially Native Indigenous women, who are harmed and often not heard or believed or given an opportunity. So in the spaces that we hold, we flip that on its head and we make sure we give equity to the voices that are not heard. That does not by any means that white men or that white women are not heard or that their voices are not valued. It just means that we give equity and we make sure that those amongst us who typically are not heard have an opportunity to be heard, that we hold a gracious space for them. And that's what we're going to do today, to the best of our abilities, right? I can't see everyone's face on the screen. I can only make some assumptions, right? Because there are also other intersections at play that I may not be aware of while I'm scrolling through here, looking at names and faces. because we are all more than just one thing. I don't wake up in the morning and I'm Black, and the next day I'm a woman. I'm a Black woman. And there are individuals that also are part of the LGBTQIA community. I'm not going to know that looking at somebody. There are people that are formerly incarcerated. There are those that are violence survivors. Those are important intersections of voices not heard. And we will do the best of our ability to make sure those voices are heard. And I ask that you bear with us, and that you bear witness, and that you help us lift up those voices. Can everybody agree with that? Can I get a thumbs up or a hand clap? Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're just gonna jump right in. If there is someone who has a thought about what has happened so far, or what is happening in our communities, or what are the things we need to address, it would be easier if you type in the chat, "I'd like to speak," because we are now at 76 people participating. Uh, so if there's someone, I've got one right now. I've got Contessa. Is there anyone besides Contessa who wants to speak right now? I'm scrolling through. Sean, let me know if you see anyone with their hand raised or interested in speaking.
I think Contessa is it. I don't really see anyone else. I apologize if someone is there that I don't see. But I would encourage folks that I think if you go back to think about what I said a little while ago about being uncomfortable in the moment and doing things that make you uncomfortable, like this is a part of that. Being brave enough to have a conversation to say what's on your mind is part of the change that we want to see and the change we want to make. This is not to say I want to force you to say something. It's your piece is fine if you want to keep it. I just want you to kind of like, if you are feeling hesitant to say something, this is a space where you should be. You're allowed to. It's fine. It's a safe space, and people, I would pray, will respect that space, respect someone's opinion, and we can have a conversation. This is what this is about.
Absolutely. So Contessa, I did unmute you. You can go ahead.
I was just wondering if anyone knew why like the curfews weren't being broadcast over the emergency broadcast system or something better than Facebook.
So my understanding, and there have been different curfews. Again, I know we've got people not just in Albany, Schenectady, and Troy, but somebody said Valatia. So there may be people in other areas. I can speak specifically for Schenectady. What happened, if there are people that know how more details about other places. Even for Albany, it's been they put it on a Facebook page and wrote an executive order and said, this is what we're doing. Specifically for Schenectady, Mayor Gary McCarthy, who I've been calling out quite a bit lately, decided after we had our protest last Sunday that was peaceful, which does not mean we were quiet, but it was peaceful, that even though we were peaceful and did things the way, air quotes, we were supposed to, that he was then going to issue an executive order for a curfew that was going to start at 7 o'clock. It was posted at 6:30 on their Facebook page and was supposed to last for the entire week. We immediately objected to that as a group. We called out to our faith leaders and our community members and said, this is not okay. He did not use the broadcast system. There were people that reported seeing it on the 6:30 news for a 7 o'clock curfew, but in less than 24 hours, we got him to shut it down and reverse it. So for other locations, Albany and Troy and Colony, it seems to be a similar pattern.
Mhm.
And there may be others that actually have an opinion on this, because Sean and I should not occupy the time, and I have to remind myself that because y'all know I talk a lot. Does that help you, Contessa, with what you're thinking?
Yeah, I was just, my objection was the fact that they were doing it. Like, I think they put the curfew out after 11 p.m. in Albany. and stuff like that. I don't get it.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Sean, who else do we have?
Well, we have several things in the chat that I was about to talk about, but just thinking about like how the curfews were rolled out in different municipalities. What I think that's really reflective of is like there's a lot of missteps from leadership and like how they're actually handling this moment in time. That's why like these conversations with just folks from the community are super important because even in leadership they're making a lot of mistakes, and if we want to like kind of control like what we're doing as a community moving forward, we all need to be in conversation with each other. But I will so there's a couple of questions that I see from Akila Jones. The lack of affordable housing, specifically in Schenectady, is problematic.
So does she want to actually come off mute? Like,
Well, let's ask the question. I just was pointing out a question. Akila, are you there?
hold on, I gotta find her name because now there's 82 of us. And because a bunch of new people have joined us, I'm going to say this really fast. I'm going to do my really fast talk. We are making sure that we're lifting up the voices of the people that are often not heard. And if you're someone that just joined us and you have a question or comment that you want to share with everyone, you can write it in the chat or you can raise your hand and we will try to get to as many people as possible. This is being recorded. It is also live on Facebook. And we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity where we record all of the notes and conversations and make sure to share it publicly. Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead, Akila.
Hey, I have never heard of it. That is amazing. I didn't know you could do that. And I know you for a while.
Akila, you are unmuted. If I'm saying your name wrong, please correct me because it is important that we say people's names the way they are pronounced.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I worked in Schenectady for probably the past like 5 years, alongside CPS, and one of the big issues was housing. And probably about half to like 75% of my caseload was the housing and homelessness. So I started like digging into why there was no affordable housing or why there were these developments coming up with the rent starting at $16.50, which no one can afford to live in. So I was digging and I came across like this whole process, this urban revitalization of downtown started back in 1998 when I was 7. Starting with the owners of Price Chopper, and I want to say the president of Union College and the mayor, and they invested all of this energy and resources and time in developing this one area. And I can't say what their intentions were, but the result is that the homelessness is just out of control. So I feel like we need to, if the goal is to invest in these businesses so they can generate revenue for Schenectady, that revenue needs to be going back into the community for the people who need it the most. So
yeah, so for those that have been with us since the beginning, the All of Us Community Action Group actually started in February, back before the world exploded and was on fire. Apparently we came on the scene at the right time. And the first issue that we actually talked about was the rent strike and housing crisis. And I can tell you from personal experience as well as political knowledge that there is no investment in businesses that are about the people. It is about profit. They get tax breaks. The city is always claiming they have no money. We have no money. We can't do things for people. But you can tell businesses that, I'm talking big corporations. I'm not talking about the mom and pop entrepreneurs, right? I'm talking people that they've got dough that should be coming back into the community when these same businesses don't offer paid sick leave, are not paying a livable wage, do not have any type of really good health care that allows people to take care of themselves. They are pocketing all of that and exploiting us for our labor so that they can make a profit. And the city has been prioritizing that for quite some time. Our mayor, Gary McCarthy, you will hear me call him out quite a bit. This is the agenda that he pushes, saying that we have an economic plan and that we have been doing a great job in the city of Schenectady. The city of Schenectady has a higher than 70% poverty rate. I paused on purpose. More than 70% of the people that live in Schenectady are living in poverty. I'm talking about real poverty. I'm not talking about the federal limit. The federal limit says like this ridiculous number of, you just have to make like $24,000 a year or you're fine for a family of 4. That's not real poverty. We're talking living wage poverty, 70%, more than 70% in the city of Schenectady. That's not economic change. That's perpetuation of poverty and harm. So the prioritization of putting money into downtown and businesses increases capitalism, not prioritizing people.
Yes.
I'll add a little bit to that, just another sharp example that I think kind of makes clear, like the focus of the leadership oftentimes isn't the community. Unfortunately, it's oftentimes big business and money and etc. So in Schenectady and in Albany, there were projects to develop affordable housing. The numbers I know specifically in Schenectady, it was like a $20 million contract, $20 million contract to build housing in Schenectady. There was no kind of assurances being made by community builders, and the community builders is supposed to be this organization that focuses on the well-being of the community, but there was no focus by city leaders to ensure that some jobs that happened on that site, were given to people from that community, right? We're talking about a $20 million contract and no one from the community being prioritized and working on the job. So for me, that's almost the equivalent of like taking a car and shining it up and knocking out the dents, but leaving a seized engine and a busted, transmission. Like it doesn't make any sense because eventually it's gonna rot out again. This is the kind of missteps that are super problematic, and the only way to make change there is to ensure, like, first the right person is there, but making sure that we're in those meetings, in those town halls, having those conversations when those contracts are up. Basically, that we're paying attention to what is going on, because they have a role as representatives, but no one's going to represent, the community better than the community itself. Like they're the focal point, but if we want to be engaged and make change, we have to be there too. You're going to constantly hear me say that on this call because I really don't want the point to be missed. We're in a moment of serious change, and like being engaged constantly is going to have to be a thing. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
We have all kinds of things that are popping up in the chat. There are people wanting to talk about education, about how can New York State be poor if all of these other things are happening. Talking about what are the next steps. Thank you to the organizers for everything. You are all welcome. Again, it is a group effort. We could not pull all of this off by ourselves. Lack of affordable housing. Waterville and Manans have a curfew coming up. There are people watching with us on Facebook Live. We are up to 81 participants on this call. Sean, I'm leaning on you because it's hard to.
I'm here. I didn't want to jump in while you were
please,
talking.
Scroll through if you see something.
I think I see a lot of stuff you're seeing. Shout out to Dea.
I see that Maxine Briscourt actually shared something with everyone. Maxine, are you willing to come off mute and talk? All right, I am unmuting you right now. Go ahead, Maxine.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I don't know if you saw what I posted. I not posted, that I typed in the chat box. It's, we all have to do our part, and we all have to sit down and just really think of our role in the system as, what are we doing to either change or perpetuate the current state of affairs. And I decided that I am no longer going to be, to use the word, coy or politically correct when I'm dealing with coworkers, because I realize there's a lot of indifference. this week, although most of the work we are doing, it's just like this virtually, online. And it just for myself, as you can see, I'm Black. I just, when I get on, and most of the co-workers are not, to just see the lack of interest. Maybe it's not interest, or maybe it's just fear of not wanting to talk about what's going on in the world. It's like talking about, oh, I'm taking my dog to the vet. Yes, that's important too. Or putting this on my house. Yes, that's important too. But it's sometimes it seems like there's this lack of recognition that there's millions of people in this country right now who is suffering, painfully suffering. I have 2 adult children who are in they have been in emotional wreck the past 8, 9, 10 days. My son is, in my mind, he's still a little boy, but he's 27 years old. On Monday morning, he called and he said, Mom, I'm scared to drive to work because what if the police think that I was one of the people doing the looting and stop me? What should I do? So I went through the whole protocol of the driving while Black, what you need to do. Make sure you have your wallet on the dashboard. With your license already ready. Make sure your phone's not in your pocket. Make sure it's like right there. So if you need to start recording, I had to go through that whole thing. My daughter, who happens to live in DC, she works for the Department of Labor and lives right in DC, is very upset because she keeps getting the Amber Alerts about issues that's going on. Not problems, but because DC doesn't have a governor, the administration is sending these Amber Alert as if DC's falling apart. She looks out of her windows and there's tanks rolling down the street. I mean, who wants to live like that? We can't live in a police state. So there I am with my 2 kids going through all of this. My husband goes to work. He's been working in the same place since 1981 with mostly the same group of people, some of the retired and so on. And he has realized that no one really wants to talk to him because I think they feel like, what do they say? And I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of supporters of the administration there, who he'll hear things about, oh, those Democrats, and things like that. And it's very hard. I'm just one family with 4 of us. And if we're having this much issue, I can't imagine what's going on in all families across this nation. So I decided that no longer I'm just going to sit there and just pretend nothing has happened. So I've been asking people at the end of meetings, here, what do you think of the current situation? And I've been giving them a lecture. One of the things I said, do you understand, in the past few weeks, we've had someone shot while jogging, right? Someone shot in her bed. I think there were 8 shots. She's in her house, in her bed. Everyone saw the knee on the neck, and that thing I can never get it out of my mind. The bird watcher, my God, he's bird watching, and someone's going to call him. That woman should get an Academy Award for her performance. I mean, I could go on and on. That's just 4 things I can just rattle off like that. So I said, I'm no longer I'm going to bring it up at every time I can, because if we have to start educating people that we can't just go around and pretend nothing's going on. I mean, everyone here, I know that you're here because you realize that something needs to be done about the current situation. But I just have to change my attitude. No longer, oh, these are co-workers. You can't talk about politics at work. I am going to talk about it every single chance I get, because that's the only way I think I can bring some change. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much, Maxine. And I am so glad to see you. There are people that I haven't seen in a while, right? Because let's be real, we are still living in COVID. That has not stopped. It's still there. But to Maxine's point, like, we are in a moment where many people are choosing to do something differently, which has the opportunity, as Sean will continue to say, to move us towards an actual movement, that we can't just be quiet anymore. And I know I've seen a bunch of posts, both in our chat and on our Facebook feed, of allies and accomplices saying, what can I do? What should I do? We've gotten messages on our All of Us Facebook page saying, I don't know, can I show up at the protest? I'm white, is that okay? Let's start with that one. Hell yes, please and thank you. Y'all need to come out. You're not gonna lead the march, but you really need to be amplifying our voices. Absolutely standing with us, because what did Sean say? It's all of us. It's all of us. Sean, other people that you've seen in the chat?
Yes, I was saying earlier, Bova. I really apologize if I have not said your name correctly, but she says I'm from Troy, live in Troy. Troy is being gentrified, as well as the rest of the capital region. Unequal access needs to change. The community we can do it. We have more eyes and minds on this topic than ever before. Dea, are you interested in speaking to that a little bit?
So I'm trying to unmute Dea, and it's not happening. Dea, can you maybe check on your side if you're possibly muted? There you go.
Hey, hello.
Dea.
How are you? Hello, I'm here.
Hey. Speak.
All right. So basically, I just got to say that I grew up in Troy. I'm young. I'm 23. I've seen all the buildings come into Troy, and I've seen all the trees get taken down. And I see how the way they're making Troy turn into like a little college town. Like, and I don't know. I just feel like we need to have a plan. Like, Troy is run off the potholes, the jail, the police station, and it's just a cycle, and it's not going to stop. And it's okay. And I just wanted to touch on that because the unequal access that's where we need to change. We gotta, I don't know, improve. I feel like we just gotta keep aiming towards what y'all are talking about and just keep going. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you, Dea. Me just before you go, Jamaica, I appreciate your voice there. Young people, you all are the future leaders. You guys are going to inherit a lot of the mess that my generation and generations before have left you. I'm here to try to help make as much change as possible and then pass it off to you because I'm getting old quickly.
Oh, man.
So I disagree. I'm not old, and I'm older than Sean. So we're just gonna put that out there. My dear friend Freda asked, "Is there a place where we can learn about all actions?" Yes, on the All of Us community action page. We don't just put out the things that we are doing. We also share information of events that we support. So maybe it's not that it's something that we organized, but we know that it is a part of this moment and our goal to become a movement that creates this type of systemic and structural change, and we share it there. We also want to make sure that we are working in partnership and coalition with other people. So if you know an organization that's working on something, connect them to us. How can we work together, or a group or an individual? Because we are untitled and free. So anyone who joined us today most likely got the link from our Facebook page. But if there are people who are maybe unaware or somehow stumbled across it, to get to our Facebook page, you actually can't just type the words "all of us," because there were other groups and organizations that will pop up. So to find the right one, you type the words "untitled" and "free." You type them all as one word. And the reason we're untitled and free is because titles will never determine whose voices we lift up. They should never determine who is given priority for having ideas or knowledge about how we create change. Some of you know I used to be a statewide organizing director. That's a fancy ass title, y'all. And people were like, "Oh, that's the so and so." And I quickly realized that shouldn't be why people are listening to me. I am a mom. I'm a Black woman. I grew up in poverty. There are so many different layers of things that I've experienced that give me knowledge about what life should be like and how we create change. And everyone that's on this call, you have that too. Personal experiences and ideas and interactions that allow you to see the world not from looking on high as some elected official that decides they know best for us, but as an actual participant. So if you type into Facebook "untitled and free" as all one word, it will take you to the All of Us Facebook page where we share out information. Who's up next, Sean? Or what have you seen that?
There's some really interesting stuff going on in the chat. There's a lot of +1s, meaning agreements from what we heard so far. I think Dan Lyles, he wants to be, he's got Stack written in there. But I want to, Julie Callahan, she says that the Albany March was the very first peaceful protest. I don't know if that means you've been in a lot of violent protests, Julie Callahan. I'm assuming that was just your first time coming out. But she says she's almost 50 and she's ashamed of the fact. But you brought your kids and you're going to be out in Troy. That's what this is, that's the special thing about this, about what's happening out of the tragedies that we've seen, is that so many people are getting engaged and coming out and wanting their voices heard and to express that emotion and feeling and then come together in community to demand the change that we need. We've talked a lot about the things that we want. There's very clear ways in which we do it. Like we have opportunities to make change, to come out and cast our votes, to come together to figure out who we want to vote for, what the principles of that person we want them to be, and staying in community and in conversation with each other and engage what the issue are. We can get to that space, but we have to be engaged. We can no longer sit down and look at either being a Republican or a Democrat as being the litmus test of who we vote for, right? It has to be way more than that. We have to figure out what are your policies, what are your politics, where do you stand on this or that issue, and what are you actually going to do? And when they do not do that, right, hold their feet to the fire and get them out and get someone there who will do the job. And it takes being consistent.
Absolutely. Before we get to Dan, we do have Jennifer has her hand up. And so I want to she's had her hand up for a minute and I appreciate your patience. I'm going to lower your hand and then, oh crap, I lowered your hand before I could unmute you. There we go. You should be unmuted. You might have to unmute on your side, Jennifer.
Unmute. Hello.
Hey, Jennifer, what are your thoughts?
I would just really like to thank you, first of all, for bringing this together. I've wanted to come to the table like this for a long time, so this is great. Thank you. I'd like to say, people are listening right now. You've got the ears of the world right now. So I think it's really important to come together. But what has there has to be a sustainable reform that happens. There have to be certain steps that people can follow. If it's too much chaos, it's just voices, random voices saying this can't go on. What can we do to focus it in and say this is how we're going to change things? Sean, and who are you actually trying to reach? I'm sorry. And who are you trying to reach? Are you trying to reach, preaching to the choir, or, people who are on the fence, or, mean people are just going to be mean forever. Sometimes.
Maybe not forever, but
hopefully not forever. Yeah. But who are we trying to reach, and how do we reach them?
Okay, Sean, want to take this one? And I want to let everyone know that we have Dan on stack, but he's in no rush. I appreciate that from you. So we'll go to Deborah Garrett next and see if any other people of color also want to talk. Thank you for understanding that, Dan. Go ahead, Sean.
All right. Yeah. So I guess, really great question. That's really the point. Are we just sitting here just, spinning our wheels, having conversations, preaching to the choir? So the way all right, so let's start here. One, there's already an awareness of things that are needed in the community. There's already legislation being pushed by several representatives that could change dramatically what we see in our community, the way our communities are funded. I'll give you an example. All public schools in New York State are underfunded. All public schools are underfunded. In the Capital District, Albany City School District is owed $30+ million. Schenectady City School District is $40+, and Troy is 15, 17, something like that. The fact that our governor has allowed that budget to stay flat this year is basically a cut. This idea that we're working for a space of scarcity. Now, this is despite having 112+ billionaires and 1 million millionaires in the state, to which we can levy a 2% tax to give us about $30-40 billion. I'm throwing you a lot of statistical stuff out there, but my point is that there are opportunities already here to address some of the inequity that we see. There's nothing we're going to do today specifically as far as legislation is concerned, that's going to flip generations of inequity, right? But there are steps we can take in the process to move that and to move that faster than what we've been doing so far and move it more directly in the direction of equity. And I think it's important that we vote, we get engaged in community groups like this, learn what legislations are on the table. How do we put pressure on our current representatives until we can either get them out and get someone else that will do it, put pressure on them to like push these bills. There's a right now 50A is repeal 50A, repeal 50A. You hear that all across the state, you hear it across the news media. I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but that basically will release police records for review. Currently, right now, they can do a lot of things. It goes on the record. We're not allowed to view it based on that rule. I would say that's
beat up Johnny on Friday. They kicked Susie on Saturday. And then Sunday, they killed Jamal. And nobody knew what happened the previous days. And no one ever will.
Exactly. But I would say, but even still, like even the importance of that, I don't want to miss, but that's not nearly enough. Because what you're seeing in police brutality in the community is rooted in something way deeper than what you're seeing. That action is the outgrowth of a more serious ill, right? We have a lot more going on that's historically rooted in this country with racism and white supremacy, and the devaluation of those that are impoverished and those that are Black and brown. So if you're asking to get involved, we can this group that you're in, we have access to a lot of different information. We'll be posting stuff on the website for you to kind of see what's there, what's going on, how it affects your community. You can learn what that is, stay in community with your own folks in your town, and figure out what you want, what next steps you want to happen, and put pressure on your representatives to do that until you can do it yourself. And I would add, you could also run. If you have the mindset that you think you want change, and you think you're someone that can do it, why sit back and just cast a vote? Run for office. Get in office and make the change that you want to see. We live in a representative government, right?
We're supposed to live in a representative government is what he meant to say.
Well, it's set up supposed to be a representative government. And if the people are engaged and active, it can be a representative government, because that's kind of how this thing works. It works with people power. I think that many of us do not understand the power of our voice, the power of community. It's really, really serious. It's bigger than the guns and the bombs and all of that. If we come together and we want action, we can change everything. That's kind of, so.
There's a lot more in this chat. I just want to lift up specifically that we are looking to reach out to those who are with us, those that are on the fence, though, like anyone that's willing to listen, like to learn, to put in the work, because this does take work. And also that if there is someone here from a community and you're like, oh, well, all of us isn't here already. If you're on this call, that means all of us is there already. So if you're someone that wants to make sure that your community is taking action, that there's something you're doing, that you want support to make sure that things get done, that there are policies that are changed, reach out to all of us so that we can get that support to you. Because we do have a number of amazing organizers who are looking for opportunities to share our knowledge and information with others and continue to grow. In our chat right now, there is quite a bit of conversation around policing, around funding for policing. So when we're talking specifically about what are those policies that we want to change, what action could we call for? There is a nationwide call for defunding policing, to cut the budget. And in the city of Schenectady, that's again the mayor and the city council that decides how we spend money. And also when it comes to policies like chokeholds and strangleholds, which right now are on the books as something you're allowed to do for Schenectady Police Department. Allowed, it's a policy that is part of, they can do that and they're not going to get in trouble. We can demand that policy be changed. Those are the types of structural changes that we're looking to call for, and to create a list based on where we are and what communities are asking for. I do want to get to Deborah Garrett, who's been waiting for a second. I want to say, Sa, everything that you're saying is so amazing, and I hope that we get to you. Also that the Muslim community is represented on this call, and just wanted to make sure that we knew that they were there. We've had faith leaders from the Unitarians that are chatting with us, who have stood with us at every single protest and rally. So Deborah, I unmuted you. You may have to unmute yourself. Go ahead, Deborah.
How you guys doing? I just wanted to say I appreciate this. And Sean touched on so many things and emotions and feelings that I personally been having. I live in the city of Troy. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. So a lot of the stuff up here looks so different to me. For one, the representation of the government doesn't represent the community that it's serving. So that's a big problem for me. So, and it's not that it can't happen. It's just that people, I don't know if they're scared or they just don't know the direction. I kind of had the opportunity to do city council for about 9 months, right? And I think what they thought was going to happen was I was going to sit on this seat and just be a yes man. And then when I started opening my mouth and questioning things, it was like, whoa, you know. But I just wanted to say thank you guys for creating this platform, because it's so uncomfortable sometimes when you're fighting, you feel like you're by yourself and there's no other person to kind of like lean on or take the brunt of some things. Prime example right now, I'm running for Troy City School District. And I'm not saying this because I'm asking anybody on this call to vote for me, but I want people to be aware that when you are able to get the chance and listen to the people that are running talk, pay attention to what they're saying, pay attention to their actions. Don't just vote for somebody because you know them. Vote for somebody that is going to make a change. And I just want to mention this and then I'll stop talking because I can go on. I'm a part of a national parents union, and the National Parents Union is a union of parents coming from all over the United States, and we're advocating for Black and brown babies. That's our main goal, is trying to eliminate the incarceration system and taking our babies instead of them, that school prison pipeline. We're trying to like delete that. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that because I want people to also look into that, because they talk a lot of powerful stuff. And it's stuff that I like to hear, and it's stuff that it makes people aware of what's going on. So however we could change in Troy, I'm open to any suggestions, whether I get this new seat or not. I'm about my business because I got kids. My 4 kids are under 10, and I need to make sure stuff happens for them. So thank you for this.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and lifting up your voice. Y'all talked about education, and I don't know who knows this, but this is how I got involved. Was because of education, because my daughter was in elementary school, and I noticed very quickly that she was treated differently than her white counterparts. That I got called into the school because she wrote a story and said that somebody kicked somebody in the balls. And when I got to the principal's office, he said, "I'm very concerned about this. What if it's gang related?" And she's talking about gangs. It was a script from General Hospital, y'all, because that's what she was watching with her grandmother. My baby in the background laughing. And I said to him, I said, no, I told her, I said, go back to class. He goes, "What are you doing? I'm so concerned." And I was just like, no, we're not doing this. And that was the beginning of a very long journey of me being involved. And that our schools are built on systemic racism. It was not built for Black and brown children, ever. Beautiful one behind me. It was not built for them. And the funding that we don't receive is disproportionately underfunded for those majority marginalized school districts. That about 80% of the schools that are owed money have majority Black and brown students. $4 billion is what our schools are owed across New York State. And to go back to Sean's point about how much money, because we live in the richest state in the nation, in the richest nation in the world. There is no lack of resources. It is about prioritization. There are exactly 529,303 millionaire households in New York. There are 112 billionaires, with 84 of the nation's 607 living in New York City. So if Jeff Bezos can be worth $131 billion, and trust me when I tell you that's an old number, because he's actually profited off of COVID. The last I heard, he was pushing on being the first trillionaire ever. That's not even a real freaking number. We used to say that as a joke when we were kids. I'm gonna have $1 trillion. It was a joke. It wasn't a real number. But this man's about to have $1 trillion, and Bill Gates with $96 billion, and that's money they got from stealing from us. Our kids don't have books for everyone in the classroom. We've got 25, 30, 35 kids in a classroom. We can't take our kids on field trips. We don't have up-to-date materials. People don't have Chromebooks in our Black and brown schools, but Jeff Bezos has billions, almost trillions of dollars. How's that make sense? But they can't be taxed? Because somebody said they're going to leave New York State. The last time we raised taxes on millionaires, you know what happened? The number of millionaires in New York State increased. Do you know why? Because we're part of the financial capital of the world. Ain't nobody going to Florida to do business. They are in Hong Kong, LA, New York. This is the center of capitalism. Wall Street, which was built on the backs of slaves, of enslaved people. This is where all the money is. And they need to give it back to the people it was stolen from so that our children have a quality education, so that everyone has health care, so that we no longer use the prison system as a profit system. That we're not intentionally putting Black and brown bodies into jails and prisons to make profit for white people that are buying yachts and summer homes. Give us back the money you stole. That is part of anti-racism. It's not just enough to say, I'm not a racist. Y'all, you've all heard this before. You need to be anti-racist. Sean, I went on a tirade. Who else is in here to speak that maybe has their hand up, or maybe there's a comment that you want to ask them to speak their words, because we want to hear their voices. We know how I get.
I wasn't going to stop you. I was just going to sit and listen, let you
That's
go
a smart
ahead.
Black man right there.
I wasn't going to get in your way. Go ahead and do you. There were some things closer to the top. There's a lot going on in the chat. I want to say I wanted to have a discussion. I think someone brought up the point earlier about like, how do I go back and have these conversations in my community? I believe the person is white, and it's like, yo, how do I go back and talk about this stuff? And I'm looking for the name, but I can't find it. There's so much going on here.
If you are that person, raise your hand, because it then pops up on my screen. So if you go down to the bottom and you go to more, or you go to reactions, or you click on your name and participants, you can raise your hand. We're going to talk just for like 10 minutes more, and then we want to wrap it up with next steps and actions, because we can't just talk about it. We got to be about it.
So
no hands yet.
No hands. All right, so I wanna just, and we'll wait to see if the hand comes up, but I wanted to get the community here focused on, the different ways in which we address or take actions, because you understand that there's different levels to this. You have your local level, your city, your town, your village, etc. Then you have your larger county, then you have your state, and you have federal level. So when you're thinking about the ways in which you want to address any policy or statutes in your community, think about which level you're actually dealing with. That's really, really important. And it kind of like gets you out of this confusing bubble, like, what can I do? Right? So you figure out where that policy is. So the school board handles education in your community, but you should know, if you don't know, I'll tell you that the state actually funds the majority of what your school budget is. So there's a couple ways to think about how do you get the things you want in school. And I'm talking primarily about school, but that actually is for, you can talk about the way your community is policed. The mayor runs the police department. He's the top cop, not just the chief, but the mayor. The mayor runs policy. He can enact a lot. So it's your city or town members that have that. If you want more information on just just getting political education is super important. We're going to set up workshops at some point where people can actually check in, get engaged, and just learn how these processes work. When we do that, of course, all you are invited, and that's what it's going to take. Because I could say all this stuff, now. I don't know how many of you remember it, But it's better if we're like engaging, having a conversation and learning from one another, like how our system works. This is our community. If you really think about the power of that. Like, this is our community, this is our society. If we want change, we have to be involved to make that change happen, or somebody's going to do it for us. Right. So I think that's important to always to just keep at the forefront of your mind. This is our place, and to get that engagement. Although quickly, I understand why oftentimes, we will not do that. Like, we work the hours on our job. We're constantly engaged. We're just trying to survive ourselves. We don't often pay attention to what's happening. We allow folks in leadership to kind of do their thing, thinking that they're going to have the best interest at heart. And really, that may be true in some instances, but in many instances, it's not. If you're not paying attention, if you're not engaged, you're not having your voice heard, people are going to do what they think is right. And oftentimes, that's not what you want. So.
Thank you for that, Sean. Also, Malia said thank you. Jerian Foster is here. Anyone that was with us yesterday heard her speak a couple times about a number of things, and I have unmuted you, Jerian, so please speak your piece and share your thoughts.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, my voice is very hoarse today, but I am okay with that. I am blessed and happy. So anyways, I just wanted to say, I really do love the kids, and I saw in the chat that Shane kind of touched on this. I think a real change that we need to see as far as in the education system is the curriculum. And I say that because, I have a 15-year-old son, and his friends come over here. And I was having a conversation with them the other day about our history as Black people, and where they believe that our history starts is slavery. And that's something that a lot of our children believe. I remember in school, that's pretty much what I remember too. That's pretty much all we know. And that's very, very unfortunate, because they were never able to see any power in themselves, only in other cultures. They're able to learn about Chinese emperors dating back to AD, as if that's truly, truly important, which it is. I'm for all races. Let me just say that. We are all the human race. So all I'm saying is that I worked in the schools, and nowhere in the curriculum is there any empowerment for our kids. In fact, I almost feel like they drill it into them that you were beaten, you were treated badly, you were slaves, and then we gave you your freedom. And I think that's a message that subconsciously is drawn, like pushed into our children, whether they realize it or not. It's almost like they're belittled, and they're teaching them that all through your history, you were belittled, you were less, So I just wanted to touch on the fact that when we do start to make some actions and ask for people to do things, that's something I think is just so very important, so that they can love themselves equally as their counterparts.
I appreciate you every single day. And I if nothing else came out of the moment that we're in right now, it's how much closer I've gotten to people that were already strong before we came together. And Jerian and her sister Michaela hold my heart. So if she ever wants to talk, I'm just gonna let her talk. Like, that's just what's gonna happen. Thank you for that, Jerian. So we're gonna start to move it along. There is a lot in the text messages and messages on Facebook. A number of people have asked how to take these conversations back to their communities. People are asking for book lists. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. we will post on our Facebook page a suggested book list. It will not be finite. It's not going to be every book that you should read. We will try to do our best to make it into some subcategories of beginners and advanced, so that you don't pick up Stamped from the Beginning as the first book that you ever read on racism and racial justice and the history of racism. But we will have that posted at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We do want to talk about, one, how do we take this back into our individual communities, right? There are people on here from all across the Capital District, not just the major cities, but also outlying areas, towns, and villages. And then what are the next steps, right? So Sean, if you could, by the way, y'all, I'm gonna tell you this. I've been putting Sean on the spot all night. Every chance I got. You know why? Because he's an amazing leader and organizer, and I know that he has all these answers, and so I'm able to do that. Sean, if you could talk a little bit about, what can people do to have these conversations back in their communities, and then I will wrap us up with next steps and things that we'll do moving forward.
Sure, no problem. So what can you do to bring this message back to your individual communities? Well, one, before you begin to have, I'm sorry, it sounded like a Harley just went by. I don't know if you guys heard that. So one, the first thing is that one, you're engaged here, and to educate yourself, right? You have to educate yourself before you can have, I think, a really deep conversation about a topic, or if you're trying to educate someone about something. But just simply having a conversation just takes doing what you normally do in your day-to-day life. You bring it up. I think I said earlier on in my conversation that you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. If we continue to do the same shit we've been doing, excuse my language, if we continue to do the same things we've been doing, we're going to continue to get the same results, right? So being uncomfortable and having conversations and bringing up things like, why do you feel that way? Why do you think, if someone is rigid in their beliefs about any particular issue, ask them why that is. Ask yourself, be reflective on the things yourself. Why do you think the way you think? What have you seen that has forced you to think that way? And challenge yourself. That's I think for me, that's the easiest inroad to one, some insight about yourself into any conversation you can have with anyone, is to ask questions and to lead with, you think you know why this person believes or think this way and that this person's just absolutely wrong. You should ask questions and make them articulate, him or her, why they feel the way they feel. And then that conversation can be had. And then actually, I think it's easier to move forward because you're not attacking them. You're just having a conversation. If they feel like they're being attacked, you can have that question. You can ask that question too. Like, why do you feel like I'm attacking you when I'm only asking you a question about how you feel about something? That forces that person, I think, to be self-reflective. Even if it doesn't happen in that moment, it'll happen in its own time later on. But back to just wanting to, if you're thinking about educating someone on something, well, that takes you getting educated yourself. That takes you getting educated, having conversations with different folks about these very same topics and issues, and then bring yourself to a place where you feel comfortable with discussing that with someone else and showing them what you learned. And bringing them to the table, actually. Sometimes just simply exposing someone to a different experience changes everything. Because you can tell them till you're blue in your face, like, hey, this is this, this is that. But actually bringing them to spaces like this to witness what's happening now, this conversation about all of us coming together as a community and doing something for the benefit of us all, can change somebody's perspective on something. So that's my take on it. I'm sure there's smarter people who can think of better ways to have conversations with people, but that's what I believe is important.
I think there's just one thing to add to that. I want you all to not have book clubs. I want you to have study groups. Don't read a book and just say, okay, this is, what I thought the author was thinking. Have a study group where you dig deep and challenge each other. Anybody, like everyone on this call knows at least one other person that they can send a text message or email or phone call today and say, hey, I want us to come together and read something. And it doesn't have to be a book. It could be an article. It could be that you watch a video or a YouTube speak out, or God help us, a TED Talk. It could be a podcast that you listen to. Seeing White is an amazing podcast. Okay, so there are 2 podcasts I'm going to add to our page when I add the book list. Listen to podcasts together and have discussions around it and challenge yourself, like Sean said, because then we expand upon our knowledge and understanding. And then all of you are going to bring even more to the table because you already have stuff to bring back to this larger collective, because that's what we're growing. And That's how you bring it back to the community. And then you look for those opportunities of the what's next with all of us, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. Yes, there are going to be more actions. Understand, we're not letting up. We're not done. We're not going home. It's not, oh, we went to the police station and jail. Okay, we're done, because they haven't changed anything yet. Every time we let up, they're like, okay, they're good. The chief of police in Schenectady made some comment about, well, I thought it would make them happy if I took a knee. We don't need to be happy. We want to be free. We want to be safe. We don't want to worry about dying because we're Black. I don't need happy. I'm okay with being upset. My mother died last year. I know what sadness is. I don't need happy. I need freedom. So those types of things, right? So we're going to keep showing up, and we're going to create demands of policy changes. The information that you all gave us here, we take back to our leadership team, that wonderful group of 10 Black men and women that represent the Capital District in a small way, but being able to hear all of your voices gives us even greater breadth of being able to think about what we should be moving forward. And then additionally, we have already started to begin to plan, what are those political education conversations we need to hold? What are the things that we need to have a group conversation about? And when we do those, I'm going to give you a warning, we're not going to let 120 people register for those conversations. Those are conversations that we need to have in smaller groups, so that when my kids are growling in the background, we all can just laugh about it and nobody's on mute. And that everyone is part of the conversation. The thing that was hard today, there were so many people involved, and thank goodness for the chat, and we were able to get some people to talk, and there are people on Facebook that are commenting, but it's not enough for us to be able to have that kind of dialogue where we're learning together, just like each of you going back to your communities and having smaller conversations, is then groups of us from across the Capital District coming together and having those political education conversations and learning new skills around organizing. Because I want each and every person that's on this call to become an organizer. Everyone. No, I'm serious. Because I know right now somebody's scared outside their minds, going, I can't be, what's that mean? I don't even know what that means. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. What does it mean to build a strategy, to have a plan? What are the different tactics we use? Why do we use them? What's the difference between an ally and an opponent? It sounds obvious, but trust me, there's more to it. And all of you are able to learn all of those things, and for us to continue to build this moment into a movement, because we need more leaders, we need more organizers. There are billions of people in the world, and we can't win unless more of us are involved and able to take leadership. And I said the world, that's right. I'm not just talking about the Capital District or New York State. We need a global movement of poor and working class people that are in this struggle together, demanding an end to all forms of exploitation and oppression, screaming Black Lives Matter, let our people go, I demand justice now. So we have those small community conversations. We come together as a collective and have conversations together. We have political education conversations that are very intentional about us learning together. I don't freaking know everything. I have been surrounded by amazing and powerful people. I stand on their shoulders who have shared information with me. At least one of them's on the call. I ain't gonna call her out, but she knows who she is because she's smiling right now with her glasses on. But then also that we plan together about what is that strategy, what is our goal, what is our short-term goal, what is our medium goal, what's our long-term goal. Our ultimate goal is freedom. And what does that look like? That's what we have moving forward. And we continue to have these community conversations from time to time and invite new voices to the table to share and to be heard and to build new leaders and new organizers. to take over our localities, our state, our country, and the whole damn world. We can do that. We can do that. Everybody ready to do that? All right, so I'm gonna go off script. I just unmuted everyone. Can we do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I need to hear you at a rally. Are we gonna be able to do that?
Yes.
Change the world.
Yeah.
I want to see all the faces. I don't see enough faces. Where you at? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do this.
Absolutely.
Right.
Let's go.
Yep.
Talk about. All right. I heard your. Can I get a your? So I just wielded my power again. And my daughter is saying yes. Saying yes too, but she's saying yes. My 8-year-old said yes to us winning, yes to us having power. You want to come say hi? No. She said no. Okay. So I appreciate all of you being here. Share the word, invite people to follow, not just like the page, follow it, because Facebook has an algorithm, and Facebook ain't our friend either. Let's be real. It's a tool that we're using, but they're not our friend. But ask them to follow the page specifically, and get more involved wherever you can, however you're involved is as good as it needs to be, and challenge yourself to be uncomfortable. Sean is right, be uncomfortable. And I will ask Sean to close us out with the final word. He's shocked because I always want the final word.
I am actually. So final word for me, I'll take us back to the beginning. This moment cannot be lost on us. This moment is too significant. All the lives lost, all the pain, all the sorrow, all the blood that we've seen. It is an opportunity for us to use that as a catalyst to move us forward. Please remember what you're fighting for. It's not simply about George Floyd, but it's about the entire system and structures in place that have caused so much pain and sorrow for so many. Remember that, and remember that your actions moving forward should be a reflection of what happened and where we are today. This is a moment we're in right now. Let's make sure that it's a movement. And I'll end with that. Thank you all for showing up and being on the call. Much appreciated. Let's change the world. Let's make it happen.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe. Have a great night, and we will see you out there. Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all. Be safe and good.
Be safe anyway.
Brother.
Bye, Sean.
Hey,
Be safe, be bold. Be safe, be bold.
Your Black Lives Matter. Be safe, be good. Remember what you stand for. Peace out. Be safe. Bye.
Everyone just be blessed and fight hard. I am now 72. I will be fighting till my last breath, unless we all do something miraculously before then.
Love you, Freda.
So you know I'm here.
Absolutely.
Always, always. Sean, we don't know each other yet.
That's right. Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
All right, everybody have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, Sean.